Hi everyone, it's Jamie Cowland from Justified.org, back after a long hiatus. Hope you're all doing well. I wanted to speak this week about the portion of the week, the Torah portion of the week, Bamidbar, in the desert, which is known in English as Numbers. As we move towards Shavuot, the festival, the time when we celebrate the giving of Torah, which translated into, I guess, into a more modern vernacular is the giving of the Torah means, when morality became absolute, when the rules that govern civil society became real. People became aware of them. Jewish tradition given from Hashem to the world via the Jewish people. How to live our lives in the best and most meaningful way for all time. So as we head towards this, Parshas Bamidbar. The Jewish people are in the desert. What's going on in the desert? Oh, well, they're kind of walking around. They're headed towards Israel. Should take a couple of weeks. It takes about 40 years. And they're supported. They have food, they have water, they have shelter, everything's kind of taken care of. And they're kind of free to think about life, free to think about meaning, free to think about who they really want to be and what they really want to be and what they really want to do, and how to live the most pleasurable, meaningful lives so that they can. They're learning Torah from Moses. Torah is instructions for living, how to really live your life in the most meaningful way. It's a good time. It's a good time. I often think about what that would feel like in my life if all of a sudden I just had no pressures on me at all. There was no financial pressure, all the shelter issues, wife, family, kids, everything was all kind of taken care of. Everything was taken care of. What would I do? You wake up in the morning like, what would you do? And I think that's a really important question to ask yourself. If you had everything that you needed, what would you do? And every year when we get to Parshat Bamidbar, I always think about that. I feel like that on some level that's kind of the lesson that we need to start to think about. The Jewish people were in the Midbar, they were in the desert, they didn't have to worry about this stuff. There's a personal message there for us. What would you do if all the money, all the food, all the clothes, all the water, all the shelter was all taken care of? If you didn't have anything taking you away from being who you were supposed to be, who would you actually be? And I think that's the most profound question that a Jewish person can ask themselves, that any person can ask themselves. And that's why it's particularly interesting that the parasha begins with the Jewish people being counted. It's called Numbers in English. And I think that's the message that I really kind of wanted to share. It's the message that I always take for myself. Is when all of the shelter issues are taken care of, when we're all kind of standing there on the borders of a conceptual desert freedom. And you think about, well, who am I and what do I want to do? At that point, Hashem tells the Jewish people, count yourselves. Every single individual counts. It's important to appreciate that you matter. And you might distract yourself, or we might distract ourselves from what we can do to make this world a better place, a deeper place, a more profound place, a more intellectually sophisticated place, a more merciful place, a more beautiful place, a healthier place. We may distract ourselves by the wealth issues, food, water, shelter, etc., etc. But when all of that is taken away, that's not our essence. This is our essence. Who are we and what are we here to do? And the Torah teaches us that at that point, every Jewish person standing in the desert, totally free, has to realize you count. You count. You're part of the Jewish people. You're part of the world. You absolutely count. So to me, that always means don't get your identity and don't get your meaning from what you do. You count in a more fundamental way. When all the money and the food and all of that stuff is taken care of, there's actually something unique and special that you're here to do in this world. And figuring that out sometimes means taking a little bit of a break from the pressures of physical life and all the shelter issues, and spending time in the desert, spending time in quiet, just trying to figure out who you really are, because that's how we shine. That's how we bring what we're supposed to bring to the fore and move the history of mankind forward. So, in a week from now, the Justified trips, the first ones, heading out to Thailand, to a kind of quiet space where people can kind of, on some level, reconnect to that part of themselves that's fundamental. But even if you're not coming with us on a trip, or you did it in the past and you can go back there in a memory, take the time to experience desert. That's this week. That's the power of this week. Take the time to experience freedom a little bit from external pressures, reaffiliation, reconnection, and rediscovery of who you really are and what you're really here to do outside of the shelter issues. You, your family, the world around you can only benefit from that type of introspection and the planning and actions that come out as a result. I wish you all Shabbat Shalom, and this is Jamie Cowland from Justify.org.